Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Energy MD podcast. I'm so glad you're joining me here today because, as you know, we're on a mission to help 1 million people get rid of their chronic fatigue, ME/CFS, and long COVID so they can have more energy and live the life that they deserve. So, as you know, we're always talking about the root causes. The big ones that we see are heavy metals, chemicals, molds, infections, and trauma. We're going to be talking about a couple of those today with my good friend Wendy Myers. So, let's learn a little bit about her. So Dr. Wendy Myers is a naturopathic doctor and founder of MyersDetox.com. She is a heavy metal detox and bioenergetics expert, as well as the #1 best-selling author of Limitless Energy, How to Detox Toxic Metals to End Exhaustion and Chronic Fatigue. Wendy is the host of a top 100 rated podcast, the Myers Detox Podcast, which I've been on a couple times, love it, and protecting your health with detoxification. Dr. Wendy, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So we're going to be talking about heavy metals. Maybe we'll get into some trauma. We'll talk about some minerals. So let's start off with metals. And I guess how would we define first? Let's all get acquainted. How do we define first toxic metals?
Yeah, so there's toxic metals, heavy metals, as people are familiar with that term. And these are just metals in our environment that get into our air, food, and water, and then into us through industrial manufacturing, coal burning, all the tire dust that, there's just like billions of pounds of tire dust that get in. There's, everything you look around you from the water, a multitude of ways, the petroleum and coal burning. There's just so many different ways that heavy metals like mercury, lead, arsenic, and not so heavy metals like aluminum, and there's thallium and cesium. Cesium is from nuclear testing and accidents. And then there's thallium that's naturally occurring in petroleum deposits, and then there's lead that's from all the coal and coal burning, and mercury also from the coal burning as well, and so many other metals that contribute to mitochondrial dysfunction, and why so many people are suffering today. If not from chronic fatigue, they're suffering just from low energy and just think that they're getting older, and that's just not the case.
Not the case. So which do you think are like the most common, or is it really individualized? What are the most common heavy metal toxicities that you see?
Well, number one would be lead, and it's not that I see it in testings. We typically don't see it in testing, but it's really difficult to be on this planet and not have lead in our bones. That's where it's typically stored. I mean, it's just in so many different things, and it's from coal burning that it settles on our soil. There's some, lead-based pesticides aren't used anymore, but they're still persistent in the soils. Then we've got, lead pipes and, where the lead can get into our water supply. And then we have, lead paints where, any home that was built before 1978 typically will have lead in the paint. So if you or a neighbor are knocking down a wall or restoring an old home, or repainting an old home, where you're sanding that old paint off, I mean, you and your family is being exposed to a lot of lead. And there's also, old books, old toys. I mean, it's just lead is in so many things. It's also in leaded gasoline, which is still used in some countries. And, but for years and years and years and years, we were using leaded gasoline. And so that stuff is stored away in our bones. And as was when women start hitting menopause and men start hitting andropause, we get faster bone cell turnover as a result of those lowered estrogen levels. And with that, lead starts coming out of our bones and starts causing mitochondrial dysfunction, suffocating the mitochondria, causes cataracts, causes all kinds of other health issues, again, that people, attribute to just getting older.
So you mentioned mitochondria a couple times. Can you tell us first what the mitochondria is and then how heavy metals affect it?
Yeah, so mitochondria are little organelles in our cells, and they have a lot of different functions. One of them is to produce energy, and there's a Krebs cycle that produces ATP, our energy currency of our cells, and we need certain nutrients to create. Energy. But a lot of these different metals that I'm talking about, arsenic, aluminum, tin, thallium, cesium, they will actually poison enzymes that transport nutrients into the mitochondria, into this Krebs cycle, and interfere in mitochondrial energy production. Also, our mitochondria are tasked with sensing, taking environmental cues and sensing danger in our environment. See, when we have an infection or chronic infections, and they can have the cell danger response where they will kind of like shut down energy production so they don't feed an infection, because infections also need energy to run off, to reproduce, so the body can shut down energy production when they sense some sort of like danger or trauma that's still in the body, or infection or what have you. That's another way that we can, the mitochondria will shut down energy production. And the mitochondria also contain biophotons, and they're kind of like little bio batteries, and that's why we need to go out in the sun to kind of charge up these bio batteries, and that's another way that the mitochondria can produce energy.
And then you mentioned it. Yeah. So I think that it's yeah, such an important point that the all these different functions that the mitochondria has. It's not just about making energy, but it has all these things too. So then the heavy metal, like you talked about, is kind of robbing the energy. It's damaging the mitochondria. So then how do you fix that problem? How do you fix that mitochondrial dysfunction when it's been damaged by heavy metals?
Yes. So, essentially you want to think about adding detoxification to your health regime, because anyone that has chronic fatigue, or they just, want more energy production, you are going to have, everyone has toxins in their body. So everyone has heavy metals. We're not even scratching the surface on, there's 100,000 chemicals that have been produced. In the US, there's about 40,000 that are in use. And these wreak havoc on our mitochondria as well, and our metabolism as a whole, our hormones and things like that, our thyroid and other things that contribute to good energy levels. And so some people are more toxic than others. There's some people that have a better ability to detox than other people. So people who have a poor ability to detox typically are going to be more sick. They're going to have chronic fatigue, complex chronic illness, more severe forms of illnesses, because their body they're kind of like behind the 8 ball. They have a disadvantage where they just, unfortunately, it's like a catch-22. The more toxins you accumulate, the more sick those people become. Where you see other people, they can drink and smoke until they're 100 and they're fine. But that's probably not you. But there are people out there that have these Olympic livers, and they can just do whatever they want without consequence. But for anyone who's ill or has chronic fatigue, they probably have some sort of issue, like a lot of toxin exposure, or a poor ability to detox. But the majority of people, everyone has been exposed to toxins, and the majority of people have enough in their body to warrant, doing some sort of like detoxification program, and whether that involves taking nutrients to detox, like minerals, natural chelators that grab onto toxins, taking binders that absorb the toxins, or doing detox protocols like coffee enemas or other things for liver support, infrared saunas, and ionic foot baths. And those types of things are, one or all of them people can do to, promote removing these toxins out of their body.
And so if somebody's listening to this right now and they're like, yeah, I don't think that I have problems with detoxification, my energy's okay, but I'm on a bunch of medications for some of these other issues, how would you kind of shed the light on some of that? Because these heavy metals can cause a whole bunch of different things, right? Not just fatigue.
Oh yeah, so metals can cause and chemicals can cause any kind of symptom, and are the underlying root cause of most of our chronic illness, diabetes. Also, heart disease, hypertension, many other health issues are caused by toxins. And so when we look at all the medications that people take, albeit many of them are necessary and they reduce uncomfortable symptoms and they save people's lives, it's another thing the liver has to break down and metabolize. And many times our livers are quite overwhelmed, where we have so many things that the liver's having to break down. Our liver function is typically compromised, and taking medications for some people is problematic, and adding another like burden to the liver for it to break down. And every medication has a side effect. There's benefits also, but that's just something to be aware of, that there are side effects to taking medications as well.
Mm-hmm. So everybody's been exposed, and if people want to know exactly, well, exactly or not exactly, but from a lab to determine how much toxicity they have, what do you recommend?
Yes. So going back to your earlier question about people think, oh, they kind of feel okay, but maybe they're taking some medications. The fact is that I think for me, for instance, I had very mild symptoms when I did my first heavy metals test, and I was really surprised by how many heavy metals that I had. I didn't even do any chemicals testing. They didn't really have that way back 15 years ago. They didn't have really any chemical testing. But when for me, I mean, I just had some brain fog, some fatigue. My test came back at 37 years old. I had the hormone levels of a menopausal woman, which I was thrilled to hear at 37. I'm 50 now. But at that time, I had low thyroid hormones. All my sex hormones were low, the estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, and I had low stress hormones. And I just thought, and the doctor wanted to put me on hormone replacement for all of those. And I just thought, well, how did this happen in the first place? And that I wanted to figure out what was going on with me versus just replacing all this stuff. I'm like, how do I just get my body producing hormones naturally again? And that's actually how I stumbled upon heavy metals testing. It was like, what causes adrenal fatigue was actually what I typed in. And I happened upon a website that did heavy metals testing. And I thought, I'm really healthy. I eat a great diet and take all these supplements and exercise, and I'm healthy, right? But I was just curious. I had never really thought of doing heavy metals testing before, because I thought of myself as generally healthy. I didn't think that really applied to me, even though I read stuff about fluoride and mercury and lead and how toxic they are to the body. It just didn't catch my attention. And so for me, I had very mild symptoms, didn't really have any diagnosis yet, but I knew something wasn't working right in my body. I was having trouble losing weight, having issues sleeping, just very mild subclinical things. So I did a heavy metals test. I had all kinds of stuff. I had mercury because I was a sushi fanatic. I had arsenic just from eating conventional chickens and eggs. I had, and a lot of rice. I had uranium. That was coming from my shower water. Because I drink spring water my whole life, but I showered in water that was contaminated with uranium, which is everyone in California and a lot of the Southwest United States. I had cesium. Don't know where I got that, but probably, nuclear testing, nuclear accidents. It just gets into our environment. I had thallium. I also, what else did I have? And I've had cadmium as well. I haven't had lead come up on testing, but it definitely, no one's exempt from that. You don't always have it come up on testing, even if you have a metal. So I had a lot of stuff going on. And so for me, I started doing a detox program, and I started feeling a lot better. But it's a lifestyle. A detox is a lifestyle. It's something you can do intensely for a period of time. Like I really hit it hard for a couple of years. But now I have more of like a maintenance program, but it's something because we're exposed to toxins every single day, especially as women. We're putting on the makeup and the perfume and the beauty products and the cleansers and the moisturizers and the shampoos. And we use a lot more products that have toxins in them than men. For women, and we're much more complex hormonally, a lot more can go wrong. We really need to be, thinking about doing daily detox because of the daily exposure that we continue to, suffer, even if we're adding detoxification to our already healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. And it can feel overwhelming for people to be like, oh my gosh, I have to fix all these things. And so do you have any advice if somebody's feeling overwhelmed at this point on realizing how much toxicity they have around them?
Yeah, well, you know what? The thing is, where you first start is just when you buy a new product, try to do some research and buy a healthier option. When I first started learning about this, I was pretty overwhelmed. I was like, oh my God, I got to replace all my makeup, all my beauty products, all my cleaning products. I got to get rid of those perfumes. And, what about my clothing? Is that toxic? And I had a baby. I was researching all about food and baby food and, trying to stop drinking Diet Coke. And, just that was in the very, very beginning. But you just do one thing at a time. So success happens changing one bad habit at a time. I think that was Benjamin Franklin that said that. So that was my motto, is just not trying to, build Rome in a day, but just trying to like replace one bad habit at a time and replace one product at a time. And that will kind of work on your influx of toxins. And then when you're ready, you can incorporate one more thing and one more thing. But usually for a very basic thing is just taking minerals. I mean, so we are so mineral deficient today because of stress, because of mineral deficiency in our food, and many, many other reasons. So people really need to focus on taking magnesium, several different forms. People need to take selenium. Most people are deficient in that. Zinc is really, really important. Taking, trace minerals is super important as well. Many people need calcium and potassium as well. So I think for me, I take like a mineral supplement. I put it in all of my water. Because even though you're drinking water, many people, they're not holding on to the water because you need minerals to hold on to water. So a lot of people don't want to drink water because it just runs through them and they have to go to the bathroom and they don't like that feeling. And I totally get it, but that's happening because you're mineral deficient. And so you need to add minerals to your water and also take a lot of minerals as well. There's minerals in people's multivitamins, but typically it's usually not enough to replete the amount that people are losing. And minerals also push out and displace heavy metals. They push them out from enzyme binding sites. So minerals are a very, very powerful detox strategy in and of themselves. So some people have to go kind of slow with just taking minerals.
And minerals boost mitochondria too. So they're
Yes, they do.
win-win-win.
Yes.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the hair mineral analysis test. Was that the test that you had done when you had tested for your heavy metals?
It was, yeah, hair mineral analysis test, or also known as an HTMA, was the first test that I did. And I still love hair testing because, there's no perfect heavy metals test. Like there's no one test that's going to tell you all the metals that you have in your body. It just doesn't exist, unfortunately. But, with the hair testing, it's really inexpensive, it's non-invasive, and it gives us a lot of information. Like it'll give us a lot of information about many different heavy metals that we have, and mineral deficiencies can give us a clue as to hidden heavy metal toxicities that we have, and also balancing your minerals, kind of doing this delicate balance and seeing what your mineral levels also are doing can go a long way to helping to detox your body. So knowing your mineral status is really, really important, and to be able to kind of have a battle plan to know, what you need to take to detox your body and help with your health. And then when it comes to other metals testing, I really like urine testing, stool testing, because different metals come out in different exit points in the body. Some metals we see best in the hair, some metals we see best in the urine, some metals we see best in the stool, like cadmium. We see best in stool. A lot of times people have no cadmium in the hair or urine, but we see really high levels in the stool. And that's really important to see because cadmium causes more cancers than all of the other metals combined. And so that's a really important one to see and to test for. And and blood testing is also really useful for lead. It's not terribly useful for other metals, but lead is one of those that we do see in the blood. Dr. Chris Shade has a different type of blood test for heavy metals. That's not the type of test you're going to get your doctors. If you go to your doctor and, hey, you hear this podcast and you want to learn about your heavy metals, the ones done typically at your conventional medical doctor is only testing for 4 metals in the blood only. And so it's not going to be terribly useful and might give you like a false sense of security, like, oh, you're good. Like if you don't see any heavy metals or it's a false negative where we don't see any metals, those metals might not be in your blood, but they could be in your brain and in your fat and in your bones and other places the body smartly stores this stuff because it doesn't want it floating around your blood, causing all kinds of damage and wreaking havoc. So blood testing is not terribly effective for that reason.
Yeah, and I think in blood, it's really just acute poisoning. Like you're having an exposure right now, but like you said, it's not from the exposures that you've had for the last 30, 40, 50 years of your life.
Yeah, exactly. And that can be really useful information. If you think you've had a chronic exposure, construction site, or the neighbors scraping and sanding their, 1900-year-old house, then yeah, so that might be really helpful information. But for the majority of people, their toxins are in their other tissues. So hair mineral analysis is great because we see a 3-month average of the tissues, what your body's kind of excreting into your tissues, like your hair. But a lot of people, again, may not have anything on their test if they're chronically fatigued, if they have genetic issues with detox, or they don't have the nutrients needed for detoxification. But once you start giving your body what it needs to detox, or you start, doing infrared saunas or other detox protocols on future tests, you'll start seeing toxins coming out of you, even if your first test you had like a no-show phenomenon where you didn't really have anything coming out. That doesn't mean that you're scot-free, that you don't have metals. It just means your body wasn't detoxing anything on that particular test.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because oftentimes when I talk to people about this, I'll say, we don't really want to do a test until we can actually get something, So I have them do it after what I call step 3, where we're opening up the drainage pathways, because then actually we're going to see something. But if you've got all these pathways that are clogged because you're so sick, you're not going to find anything, whether it's heavy metals, chemicals, or molds. Has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, exactly. And it's definitely if someone is when I look at a hair test and I don't see any metals coming out, I instantly think this person's in trouble. They're not able to detox. And so that's a problem. That means they're building up. So when you have a test and there's nothing coming out on it, that's not the time to celebrate. That's the time to jump into action and to start, working on detoxification.
And I know that I use mainly the urine provoked heavy metal testing, and so consequently, and with a number of these things, with the heavy metals, the chemicals, and the molds, people will notice that as they get further into the process, that they think that they're getting worse because they're dumping more, and so they have more in their urine. Is that the same thing that happens in the hair as well?
Yeah, exactly. And people get really upset when they start doing a detox program or start taking my detox supplements or something. They're like, I want my money back. This is not working because I have more metals coming out, but that's how it works. They have to come out for you to get better, for them to exit your body. You will see increased levels coming out in hair, urine, or stool. That's how it works. How else is it going to get out of your body? So you have to kind of do this like deductive reasoning that, when you start a detox program, your metal levels are going to go up, albeit temporarily, but every test that I do, I have a different metal coming out. Typically I might have, a few months where I'm dumping a lot of like mercury or lead or whatever, but on the other tests, I'll say, wow, a huge jump in uranium. Wow, a huge jump in arsenic, or a big jump in cesium, or what have you, as an example. And so it's interesting. The body starts releasing these storage sites of metals kind of in the order in which it needs to, and when it's ready, or when it has the energy and the raw materials, the nutrients, the chelators and things to do so.
Yeah, and it seems like there's also like a binding coefficient with the binders. So the binders are going to bind preferentially to certain metals first, and then they go after the next one. Has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, for sure. And that's why it's important to do testing, so you know what nutrients that you need. Because certainly you can take all kinds of different supplements. You can try the charcoal and the zeolite and the chlorella, and you can take a horse, like a huge handful of minerals to feed a horse, every meal. But it makes more sense, rather than doing this shotgun approach, to do more of a sniper approach when it comes to supplementation, because it's just going to save you time and money and energy if you're taking specific nutrients that will bind onto and grab onto and detox the specific metals that you have. Because sometimes you do testing, you have some weird metals, like you have beryllium, which blocks magnesium, or you'll have a lot of, people can have a lot of cadmium, or they'll have a lot of nickel, for instance. People that had braces in the past will have really high levels of nickel. So you want to take a specific nutrient to remove those metals, and they're not typically the detox supplements that everyone's taking, or tries to take.
Hmm. I love the fact that you said that you're like a sniper. You're like the supplement sniper,
Yeah,
figuring
I'm a
out
supplement
exactly.
snob too. I like taking really good, like high quality supplements as well.
Yeah, me too. So let's talk a little bit about that. So you've got a mitochondrial detox.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
tell us about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you know what? When I was first, working with clients, and even with my own health issues, everyone's main complaint is energy. They want more energy. They're tired, they're brain fogged, or what have you. And you need energy for your immune system functioning, for digestion, for everything. That's the name of the game. So I wanted to develop something that really helped with removing metals that cause fatigue. So it's namely that arsenic, aluminum, tin, thallium, cesium. So these are some of the top metals that interfere in mitochondrial functioning. Mercury and lead also are problematic as well. But these metals are very, very common. Aluminum is the most common metal in the Earth's crust, and it's just everywhere. I mean, we're slathering on our underarms, so it's very drying. So everyone's, and even if you've been using natural deodorant for 10 years, you were using Secret way back when in high school. Okay, so we were all doing it, and we've all been eating, aluminum is also a drying agent, anti-caking agent in flour and salt and sugar. You've been eating that too for a long time, even though you're gluten-free now, whatever. But yeah, and so aluminum, we breathe it in. It's in the air. So the aluminum is just everywhere. And then so anyways, so I created this mitochondria detox, and the first product is called Ageless AF. And so it's got this orthosilicic acid, or OSA, and that specifically binds onto these metals and removes them. Really, really, really effective, highly absorbable form of silica. So it's not like silica or like horsetail or bamboo silica. That has a pretty low absorption rate, and it's not so effective at binding on to these metals that cause fatigue. So not all silicas are created the same, just like not all magnesiums are the same, not all zeolites are the same. Some have more specific functions, like the OSA is great at grabbing onto these metals. But this also has, the Ageless also has selenium in it, which I've done testing. Most people are deficient in that and need that to bind onto mercury. and really helpful your thyroid hormones as well. And it also has some hyaluronic acid and biotin to help your hair, skin, and nails and bones, which is nice. The silica does too, of course, because silica is what makes vegetables really shiny, like a bell pepper or Swiss chard. And you're like, ooh, it's kind of has a nice shiny texture to it. That's what also makes your skin and your nail and your hair shiny as well. So that silica component. And then as an adjunct to that, the mitochondrial detox, people need to do a binder. They need to take a binder that acts kind of like a sponge to absorb toxins. Because, whenever people are doing a detox program, they can have detox reactions where they're mobilizing a lot of stuff out of their fat tissues or out of their blood or out of their bones. And while that stuff is processing, while it's processing through the kidneys or the stool or whatever, the liver, they can feel really bad. They can have headaches and fatigue and nausea and brain fog and things like that, depending on what they're detoxing. So it's really important to take a binder. It's the number one detox mistake that people make. So the binder that I created is called CitraCleanse. And it's got grapefruit citrus pectin, which is amazing at absorbing all kinds of chemicals and heavy metals. But it also contains fulvic humic acid and cilantro extract, which are great at detoxification, grabbing onto lead and other metals as well, and chemicals. And so those two things together are really, really effective over time, removing metals that interfere in mitochondrial energy production.
Excellent. Sounds like you put a lot of thought into this.
Yeah, I'm thinking about these things.
Yeah, for sure.
First, yeah.
Excellent. So what does progress look like when somebody goes on these products? This isn't all one product, right? It's a couple different products.
Yeah, it's two different products. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's about a 30-day supply people get, and that starts to make a dent for sure. But when you're looking at, you're 40 or 50 or 60 years old, and you've had decades of breathing, 11,000 liters a day of air, and all that particulate matter and all the chemicals in the food, and all this stuff is built up over time. People need to have realistic expectations about how long it takes to remove this stuff. So there's not going to be any miracle in 30 days. Every little bit counts, but people need to, really think realistically about a year, maybe longer, 2 years. People that are very sick, maybe longer. They can remove a lot of stuff in 6 months. They can remove a lot of toxins in 6 months. But typically, like I mentioned before, detox is a lifestyle. There's a constant influx of new stuff that we're, getting in the air, food and water. So we need to be thinking about, for me, it's really important to communicate to people of thinking of detox as a lifestyle, so doing something on a daily basis, whether that's an infrared sauna, ionic foot bath, minerals, coffee enemas, things like that are a really great thing to add to your already healthy lifestyle.
I'm glad you brought up some of those other techniques and therapies. So in terms of saunas, so it seems like my experience is that saunas are incredibly helpful to a certain point. Like they usually don't get people all the way better, but they make a significant difference. And it seems like they're kind of taking a level off of heavy metals, chemicals, molds, but they don't necessarily go, and you would think that they would go really deep based off of the technology, but I find that you need something in addition. You can't just do it with sauna. Is that what you found as well?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's different methodologies that are really good at removing some different types of toxins. Like saunas are really great at removing fat soluble toxins. So you can excrete these fat soluble toxins out of your sweat glands and stuff that's stored in your fat. And as you're kind of starting to lose weight, you'll have these fat soluble toxins coming out of your fat. But there's other types of toxins that people have as well. That's why I like the ionic foot baths. Those can get negatively charged and positively charged toxins as well, and radiation, which is fantastic. But you also have to give your body the nutrients to get rid of this stuff. So you need antioxidants. You need vitamin C and vitamin E and alpha, like lipoic acid, and glutathione and things like that. You need protein, you need sulfur containing amino acids for your liver to work, to break this stuff down. You need minerals. And so there's no one thing that you can do. But infrared saunas are amazing. I mean, there's amazing research out there that there's one Finnish study that showed that people that did a sauna 5 days a week had a 40% reduction in mortality from all causes. And that's huge. And so that's why in like Finland, it's like one of the happiest countries in the world. And part of that, I think, is just that culture of doing saunas, and their bodies are much less toxic, which leaves a lot more energy and room for joy and production of neurotransmitters and hormones and things that make people feel good and happy. And that's just from a regular sauna. An infrared sauna definitely has more productive sweat. There's more toxins in the sweat. So those are going to be much more effective than, say, like a regular sauna. But yeah, and we have to do liver support. Coffee enemas are amazing at liver support. So there's just definitely more than one way to skin that chicken. Yeah, there's lots of other ways you can detox too. There's bioenergetic detoxing. I use Rife technology to do bioenergetic detoxing. There's other things I do as well for bioenergetic detoxing. There's a program called Ness Health that's amazing, that can really help to optimize your detox pathways, and so that you can detox much, much easier. Really important, especially if you have complex chronic illness and you really can't eat a lot of foods or take a lot of supplements, and detoxes just make you feel really sick. Then you need to begin with the basics. So I start people with bioenergetics and using this really sophisticated bioenergetic software called Ness Health, NES Health. And that can get people kind of stabilized to the point where then they can start doing detox programs and don't have the food sensitivities anymore, and can take supplements again and things like that. Because there's a lot of chronically ill people have a lot of impediments to detoxing. The last thing you want to do is start flooding the body with mercury when you can't even tolerate a blueberry. You know what I'm saying? So there's definitely a way to go about this, and a lot of different strategies that people can use for detoxification. But if I don't recommend going it alone and doing the DIY detox and just do some things and hope it works. If you're very ill, I recommend working with a trained practitioner like yourself.
And you.
Yeah.
So bioenergetics, can you define that for us?
Yes. So bioenergetics is harnessing the power of feeding information to our body, to our body's energy field, which then changes physical functioning, because our physical body takes direction from our energy field. And a lot of the body's communication happens in this energy field. It's almost like Wi-Fi, how we have lots of information in our Netflix movies downloading on the waves, the Wi-Fi waves, and information we hear through the radio on radio waves. Our body works the same way. So we have lots of information that's communicated in our brain waves, our heart waves, and that accounts for the majority of the communication that happens in our body. So it's much more elegant to identify where we have like energetic blocks in this flow of information, and also feeding correct operating instructions to our body, healing messages or what have you. And so that can be a much more elegant way to kind of get to the root of what's going on and correct the body's energetic functioning, so the physical expression is more desirable.
And this energetic stuff isn't woo-woo, right?
No, it is not. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of research that's been done by HeartMath Institute, by Dr. Bruce Lipton, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Ness Health Bioenergetics. They have over 20 studies. They have new university studies showing that their protocols do in fact work. They did a study on the mitochondria. They show that one of their kind of like their liquid remedies that have information imprinted on them do increase the output of mitochondrial energy. I don't know the exact university where that study was done, but that's a recent one that they did. So there's Lynn McTaggart wrote a book called The Field, Harry Massey wrote a book called Decoding the Human Body Field. So you can just dive right into those if you want to get into all the science behind it. But the results speak for themselves. I started doing bioenergetics about 7 years ago. And for me, it just really dramatically improved my brain function, improved my sleep, reduced my stress levels. I used to be bulimic, and that arrested about 2 months into starting to do this program. That really caught my attention. And one of the reasons it works is it addresses emotional trauma, which there's a lot of conventional medical research that shows that 65% or more of physical health issues are caused by emotional trauma. And that's certainly the case for chronic fatigue and, many other pain syndromes, and many other cancers, and many other health issues. So one of the reasons Nest Health Bioenergetics works so good is it identifies emotional trauma that we have, what organs it's affecting, and it has protocols to release those.
And it seems like it's pretty gentle, so it might actually be a good fit for folks who have MCAS or mast cell activation syndrome, or people who are more sensitive to supplements.
Absolutely. I mean, it's critical for people with MCAS, because what it does is it identifies every part of your energetic immune system, and it actually sends correct operating instructions to your immune system. I've seen incredible results. It's really revolutionary in how it sends correct operating instructions to the immune system to kind of calm that down, to kind of calm down that overreaction the immune system's happening. I've had clients that they can only eat 5 foods, that can eat whatever they want. They can eat gluten, dairy, whatever. It doesn't bother them anymore. So I think it's really difficult to address immune system malfunction with just physical means. I mean, how much bone broth can you drink? How much, you know what I'm saying? I mean, a lot of people are doing that. It just takes them years to get their gut functioning better, their immune system to calm down. And people are frantic. They can't take supplements. They can't eat foods. They react to everything. And part of that can be chemicals that are irritating the immune system. The mitochondria sense all this danger, all the toxins in the body, and infections that can result from low energy bodies, these opportunistic infections. But these people are desperate, and it can be really difficult to kind of turn that ship around. And that's where bioenergetics really, really shines, is correcting immune system malfunction and overreaction.
So how do people get access to Nest Health?
Yes.
Practitioners, products?
Yes. Well, you can go to nesthealth.com. That's a place to start. There's 5,000 practitioners around the world. Here at MyersDetox.com, we have like about 6 practitioners that you can see as well, but you can do it anywhere in the world. You can do it remotely in the comfort of your own home. But I do just have a word of caution. There's a couple different ways that you can do the program, but really for people who are ill, who are really looking for results, there's a device called a MyHealth. That's, it's an investment, but you really need to use the MyHealth device to get really the significant results, what this program is capable of. You have to get a MyHealth device to really get the spectacular results and, kind of the resolution of symptoms that people are looking for. So that's just my personal recommendation based on what I've seen with my patients.
And is that a applied kinesiology device that sends the information back to the software, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, so this is the device right here. If you're watching the video, it's called the MyHealth. It looks kind of like a little cell phone, and it just sends like correct whatever function was found in your scan that your body needs correction with. So it'll send the correct operating instructions on scalar waves to your body. So this is an amazing device right here. I use this every single day. I've actually worked with Dr. Mercola also personally to learn Nest Health, and he has 3 of these. I worked with Ben Greenfield. Ben Greenfield also uses this device. Donna Gates. I mean, it just goes, Katie, the wellness mama, just goes on and on and on. The people that utilize, harness the power of this kind of doctor in your pocket. So I use this thing constantly, but yeah, so it's not using kind of applied kinesiology, so to speak. It's you do a scan of your body and you test about 800 different data points in your body. So you get a lot of information about where you have energetic blocks in your chakras, your meridians, your organs. You can see all the different types of emotional traumas that you have. You can see all of your food sensitivities, all of your, like, what kind of EMF or electromagnetic fields you're sensitive to. Just a tremendous amount of information in a 1-second scan. And it's eerily accurate, because everything has a frequency that can be measured, everything. And so when you do this scan, you get all this information, and the software will tell you what priorities that you need to address. And so you can do that with liquid remedies called infoceuticals that you can have sent to your home, and or you can send certain functions to your My Health device. And I just, click my functions that I need and put this on my heart, and it sends those frequencies to my body field. That's the corrective information that I need to correct the issue my body's dealing with at that time. And that's essentially how it works. It's very, very simple, and it's fairly inexpensive to do and incredibly effective. I've seen it and like incredible results with it. But again, not going to be a miracle in 2 months. It's something that you need to do, at least 6 to 12 months, maybe longer, to get the results that you're seeking, especially if you're chronically ill. You're not going to have a miracle in, a couple of rounds of Nest Health.
And so is that the Rife information that you were talking about, or is that something different?
That is a different device. So the
Okay.
Spooky 2 Rife, RIFE, that's 100-year-old technology, and that was invented by Royal Rife. And again, he was definitely put out of business by the Medical Association at that time. But the Rife device is incredible for identifying pathogens and killing them, any type of pathogen that you have. And so this is really critical, I think, for people with chronic fatigue that have this kind of terrain where pathogens thrive, because they're just, these are a lot of opportunistic infections that people have. So it doesn't matter what you have, whether it's Lyme, mold, viruses, bacteria, doesn't matter. Parasites, liver flukes, brain prions, all kinds of proteins. You can kill all of that, because it just, you do a scan, it gets the frequency of the pathogen you have, sends the opposite frequency to your body, and it explodes the membrane of that pathogen. So it's a very simple, easy, effective way to address pathogens and infections very, very quickly. And so those are kind of and there's a lot of other frequencies in it. There's anti-aging frequencies that I use. There's frequencies for minerals, for collagen, silica, essential oils, or whatever you want. And so these are kind of the tools that I use for my health, and I find they're incredibly effective and much more elegant and simple, that you can do at home. And they work much better than doing like all kinds of different protocols for candida, and then protocols for parasites, and protocols for just Lyme, or a lot of infections people have are just not responding to medical and functional medical protocols. And they hide from the immune system, but you can't hide from a Rife device. So I think the Rife holds a tremendous amount of promise for so many people. My 75-year-old mother has one that she uses, and my brother has one. I love the Spooky 2 Rife. I think it's just phenomenal.
Nice. I'll have to look into it again. I did several years ago and didn't see a lot of benefit, but it was only a couple of people. So I'll have to check it out again. It sounds like if you're exploding the infection, potentially you could get die off. I mean, do people feel
Oh
worse?
yeah.
I remember
Oh, you
something
can die
about
off.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. But there's also protocols you can run. You can do a bioenergetic detox program that helps your body manage the die off.
Mm.
So there's different, like it's called detox maintenance. It just helps your kidneys and your liver and your colon kind of manage the die off. So there's lots of very clever ways that you can use the Spooky 2 Rife. And they have a Facebook group called Spooky 2 Rife for Life. There's 60,000 people in that program, in that Facebook group, including a lot of medical doctors, and phenomenal results. So I recommend going in that group if you're curious. And very active group, a lot of really phenomenal stories of healing.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wendy. This is great. You've dropped so many wonderful knowledge bombs here for us today. So where can people go to learn more about the wonderful work you're doing in the world?
And I also have a podcast where, heading in on 500 episodes of the Myers Detox Podcast.
Wow.
So I can't believe that. But doing this a while, and still having a great time doing it. And also, if you guys want to take a quiz, I created a quiz at heavymetalsquiz.com. And if you want to learn, kind of your relative body burden of toxins, I created a lifestyle questionnaire that can kind of get at to, what level you're at as far as your toxin level. And you get a free video series after that answers a lot of people's frequently asked questions about detox.
I highly recommend people check that out. We're going to drop the link below as well.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Wendy. Great to see you as always.
Yes, thank you.
I hope you learned something on today's podcast. If you did, please share it with your friends and family and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It's really helpful for getting this information out to more people who desperately need it. Sharing all the experts I know and love and the powerful tips I have is one of my absolute favorite things to do. Thanks for being part of my community. Just a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. It is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. Thanks for listening, and have an amazing day.